Welcome to Diksha Online. So, today we are going to start new chapter, that is wave optics. So, wave optics deals with the nature of light, whereas in case of ray optics we considered what light does rather than what light is. But in this chapter we will address the question, what is light? So, the nature of light was something which people thought of for long time. So, there were so many theories developed to explain the nature of light. So, in this regard, so many efforts were put forward. So, it gave rise to so many theories. So, wave optics is the branch of optics which deals with the nature of light. So, the theories which were put forwarded by different people to explain the nature of light are as follows. So, first one is corpuscular theory of light. This was proposed by Newton. Then wave theory of light. This was proposed by Huygens, Christian Huygens. And then electromagnetic theory of light. This was proposed by Maxwell. And then quantum theory of light, that was proposed by Max Planck. Then the dual nature of light. This theory was proposed by Louis de Broglie. So, every theory had its own advantages, its own disadvantages. If you see the overall performance of a theory, in that wave theory is the most successful theory among all the theories of light. So, Newton introduced corpuscular theory of light in order to understand the phenomena like reflection, refraction, rectilinear propagation and all, but corpuscular theory had a limitation. It failed to explain the phenomena of refraction. Later, the wave theory of light was proposed by Christian Huygens. So, entire wave optics is based on Huygens wave theory of light. So, the very first concept that we come across in Huygens wave theory is the concept of wavefront. Now, let us assume that we have a point source which is located in a homogeneous isotropic medium. So, light is emitted in all directions in the medium. So, if this is the point source, light is emitted in this direction, it goes in this direction, it goes in this direction. Any direction you choose, light is emitted by the point source in all possible directions. Now, let us say light is allowed to travel for an amount of time delta t. Then the distance travelled by light in the medium will be x is equal to v into delta t, where v is speed of light in the medium, in that particular medium. Now, from this point, taking this v delta t as a radius, if I draw a sphere around this point, taking this as the center, if I draw sphere around it, then all the points on this spherical surface will be vibrating in phase. So, it will be vibrating in phase. So, this kind of a surface in which every point on the surface will be vibrating in same phase, that is what we call it as wavefront. This is what we call it as wavefront. So, wavefront is locus of all those points which are vibrating in same phase. So, if you have a point source, the wavefront arising from that will be spherical in shape. So, it will give rise to spherical wavefront. Now, notice one thing, if t is the instant at which you draw this particular wavefront, or let us say this time is t1. Now, if I allow it to travel for time t2, where t2 is greater than t1, then it will advance further in the forward direction. Then at this point I can draw one more sphere taking the same center but a different radius. So, this will also give rise to one more wavefront. So, wavefront will not be stagnant. So, this is at instant t1, this is at instant t2. So, if you continue to allow the light to pass through the medium, as it proceeds the wavefront advances. The wavefront which was here, now it has moved to here, then it continues to move in the direction of propagation of light. So, this is what we can observe. So, depending on the shape of the source, we have different types of wavefronts. Suppose if you have a point source, we have spherical wavefront. For a linear source like tube light, you have cylindrical wavefront, and if the source is at very far off distance, then we get a planar wavefront, or if the source is like a plane, then you get a planar wavefront. Wavefront will be plane. So, we will have different types of wavefronts. So, spherical wavefront is the locus of points which are in the same phase in the form of a sphere. So, when you have point source, we get spherical wavefront, or if you have a spherical source, we get spherical wavefront. So, the wavefronts arising from sun near the surface of sun will be spherical, but by the time it reaches the earth, the distance is too large, you can consider it to be as good as plane. Then coming to cylindrical wavefront. So, it is a locus of all those points which are in same phase in the form of a cylinder. So, example for cylindrical wavefront is wavefronts arising from tube light or a rectangular slit. Then plane wavefront. So, here wavefront tend to become plane at infinite distance. If the distance is very large, the spherical wavefront, cylindrical wavefronts, they become plane. So, sun rays reach the earth in the form of plane wavefront. So, it is similar to the fact that if the source is at infinity, we get parallel beam of light. When you have parallel beam of light, you have plane wavefront. So, when you consider a small portion of a large spherical or cylindrical wavefront, it can be considered as a plane wavefront. That is the idea behind this concept. At infinite distance, any wavefront can be taken as plane. So, these are different types of wavefronts. This is spherical wavefront. So, each circle here, actually it should be sphere. So, each sphere here represents a particular wavefront. So, this is position of the wavefront at one instant, next instant it is here, next instant it is here. So, it is going out. So, it is coming out of the source. Here this is cylindrical wavefront, the second one. So, we have a linear source, then this is one wavefront, next position is here, next position is here, next position is here, and so on. And this is a plane wavefront. So, initially it is here, now then here, then here, then here. As the wave propagates in the medium, in the direction of propagation of the light, the wavefront also advances. So, this is about types of wavefronts. Now, coming to Huygens principle of wavefronts. So, according to Huygens principle, so Huygens principle is used to locate the position of the secondary wavefront after a given interval of time. Where exactly the wavefront moves, in what direction it moves, where exactly it will be located after a given instant of time. To calculate its position, we go for Huygens principle. So, according to Huygens principle, every point on a primary wavefront acts as a secondary source of disturbance. So, every point on a wavefront acts as a secondary source of disturbance. Then the wavelets emanating from the source of secondary disturbance spread out in all directions with the speed of wave. So, secondary waves spread at the speed of the wave, at the speed of light in this case. So, if you have a common envelope of all these disturbances produced by the secondary wavelets, then envelope of these secondary waves gives the shape of the new wavefront, that gives you the shape of new wavefront. So, in order to understand this, we will follow this particular procedure. So, the diagram will be like this. So, let us say light is propagating in this direction, we have a point source. So, taking the point source and V as a radius or V into T as a radius, you can draw a sphere. You can draw a sphere like this one. So this central dotted sphere is what you get. Now you want to know the position of the wavefront after a time delta t, let us say. Then taking each point on this wavefront, primary wavefront, as a center and v delta t as the radius, draw these spheres. So each point should, the center of each circle should lie on this wavefront only. So when you do this, then you get these spheres. Then the common envelope of this will give you the position of new wavefront. So the one in the forward direction is called forward wavefront, and one in the backward direction is called backward wavefront. So we know that this backward wavefront does not exist. So this is the procedure to be followed. So shape of new wavefront after time delta t is obtained by drawing spheres of radius v delta t, where v is velocity of wave in the medium, with each point on the wavefront as the center. Taking each point on the wavefront as a center, draw spheres of radius v delta t. Then the common tangent, that is the envelope of all these things, drawn to all these spheres gives you new position of the wavefront. So it can also be done for plane wavefront. So taking each point on the plane wavefront as a center, if you draw spheres of radius v delta t, common envelope of all those things gives you new position of the wavefront. So that is your Huygens principle of wavefronts. Now the next concept here is the applications of this Huygens principle. So the first application is refraction of a plane wave at a plane surface. So refraction of plane wave at a plane surface. So let us assume that light is traveling from rarer to denser medium. So here it involves some constructions. So better you keep compass and scale ready for this. So our intention here is to derive Snell's law of refraction using Huygens principle. Now let us consider the refraction at a plane surface. Now let us say xy is the interface separating the two media, and let us say this is medium 1, this is medium 2. Now velocity in medium 1, let it be v1, velocity in medium 2, let it be v2 for a wave. Now let us consider the plane wavefront. So we are considering plane wavefront at plane surface. So plane wavefront here is incident wavefront, that is AB. AB is incident wavefront. Now notice one thing, whenever you draw the wavefront, so the rays and the wavefront, they will be always perpendicular to each other. So the direction of wavefront will always be perpendicular to direction of propagation of the wave, that you can notice here. So AB is the incident wavefront. Then when the end A of the wavefront touches the surface, end B of the wavefront, it is still in the first medium. Let us say first medium is air, second medium is some water. So point A already reached water, but point B is still in air. Now the wavelets, secondary waves that are coming from point A, they travel with the speed v2, whereas at point B they travel with speed v1. Now let us say the wave at point B will reach this point, let us say A dash, after time t. Then this distance BA dash will be equal to v1 into t. So this will be equal to v1 into t. So now this is your angle of incidence, then this angle is 90 degree, then this angle will be 90 minus I, and at this point this dotted line is normal to the surface, so this angle must be I. So angle made by wavefront at the point where it strikes the surface, that is what we call it as angle of incidence. Now, time taken by light to travel from B to A dash is, let us say, t. Then in that case the distance B A dash will be equal to V1 into t. Distance B A dash will be equal to V1 into t. Now understand this, by the time light comes from B to A dash in time t, the light goes from A to B in the same time with velocity v2. So this covers the distance v1t, this should cover the distance inside water, it will cover the distance equal to v2 into t. So distances covered are not equal. So what we will do here is, so this distance is v1 into t, we have assumed that light is travelling from rarer to denser medium, so v2 must be less than v1. So taking v2 into t as the radius, from point A draw an arc. So this dotted line represents the dotted arc. Now from this point draw tangent to this. Where the tangent is drawn, that point we call it as B. Now this must be angle of refraction. So this must be angle of refraction. So if this angle is r, this will be 90 minus r, and this should be 90. So this must be equal to r. Now what we get here, this one is the refracted wavefront. So this is what is incident wavefront, and this is your refracted wavefront. So with this much construction, we came to know what is I, what is R in our procedure here. Yes, now with this we will proceed with the derivation. So we have to derive Snell's law. So in order to derive Snell's law, what we will do, we will consider the two triangles. Now one thing you can notice, angle BAA dash is I, and angle, let this be B dash. So B dash A dash A is equal to R. So this is what we have got. Now from triangle, so let us take the triangle containing I, A B A dash. If I take sin I will be equal to opposite by hypotenuse. Opposite is BA dash divided by hypotenuse is AA dash. Similarly, from triangle, this triangle, if I take A B dash A dash, A B dash A dash, from triangle A B dash A dash, sin R, if I take, that should be equal to, see this is R, opposite is AB divided by AA dash. Let us call this as 1, this as 2. Now 1 divided by 2, if you do, it is sin I by sin R, that will be equal to A dash get cancelled. So you will get BA dash divided by AB. Now BA dash is what? V1 into T. AB is what? V2 into T. So you'll get V1 into T divided by V2 into T. So that will give you V1 by V2. So what we have got here is sin I by sin R is equal to V1 by V2. Now in this case V2 is less than V1, so that's why R is less than I. So it is evident from the diagram also, and we have considered light is traveling from rarer to denser medium. Now we know that refractive index of first medium N1 is equal to C by V1, and refractive index of second medium N2 is equal to C by V2. So with these two things, what we can write is N2 by N1 is equal to V1 by V2. So if I call this as 3 and this as 4, now from 3 and 4, what we get? Sin I by sin R is equal to N2 by N1, or what we can write is N1 sin I is equal to N2 sin R. So this is your Snell's law of reflection, Snell's law of refraction. So this is how, using Huygens wave theory, Huygens constructions, we can arrive at the Snell's law of refraction. Yes, proceeding further. Suppose if light is traveling from denser to rarer medium, then this is incident wavefront, AB is incident wavefront. So EC is the refracted wavefront. Here what happens? This is V1 into T, this is V2 into T. So V2 into T will be larger than V1 into T. So notice one thing here, the refracted ray bends away from normal, but in the previous case it was bending towards the normal. So here we can define the case of critical angle. So critical angle will be such that sine of critical angle will be equal to N2 by N1, where N2 is this medium, N1 is this medium. So there is no proof for this, so this is just the observation. So at angle of incidence is equal to critical angle, R will be equal to 90 degrees, sin R will be equal to 1. Yes, proceeding further, we have reflection of plane wave by plane surface. So we will consider reflection of plane wave. Plane wave means it's corresponding to plane wavefront, so that is corresponding to parallel beam of light. So now in order to prove this, let us consider reflection at a plane surface Mn. Here our intention is to prove the laws of reflection. That means angle of incidence should be equal to angle of reflection. So now first let us focus on the incident light beam. So, incident light beam is this. So, this is one ray, this is another ray. So, they strike the plane surface at the points A and C. Then reflected light goes along this particular direction. So, here it goes along this particular direction. Now, this angle will be equal to r. Here this angle will be equal to r. Now, what we will do is, here also when the light beam reaches point A, it has not yet reached point C. So, it has not yet reached point C. So, in that case the incident wavefront will be this. If I draw perpendicular to this, so this AB gives the incident wavefront. So, AB gives you the incident wavefront. So, this is our incident wavefront. Now, the moment when the incident wavefront, one end of this touches the point A, then immediately it undergoes a reflection, but this end, other end, has not yet reached the point C. It has not yet reached the point C. So, in that case, by the time it reaches from point B to point C, the light from point B should reach point C. So, before this what happens, this light would have travelled some distance in the medium. Suppose light takes t seconds to reach from point B to point C. In that time, light from point A would have reached certain distance. So, taking V into t as the radius, from point A, draw an arc. So, that gives rise to this particular arc. Then from point, whatever is this distance, take that only as the radius and mark this arc. Now, from point C, draw tangent to this arc, then that will give you your reflected wavefront. So, this will be your reflected wavefront. This will give you your reflected wavefront. So, this is incident wavefront, this is reflected wavefront. So, now if this angle is r, this angle must be 90 degree. So, this angle must be equal to r. So, now if this is I, then this should also be I. So, I is angle between the incident wavefront and the plane surface, r is angle between reflected wavefront and the plane surface. Now, taking these two things, we will be able to prove the laws of reflection. So, to prove laws of reflection, what we will do, we will consider these two triangles AEC and ABC. AEC and ABC. So, if you consider these two triangles AEC and ABC, in these two triangles, AE is equal to BC. So, this is also equal to V into T, this is also equal to V into T. Notice one thing here, both are travelling in same medium. They are travelling in same medium, that's why the distances covered in the equal intervals of time will be equal. then angle AEC and angle ABC are equal to 90 degree. That is equal to 90 degree. Then AC is common. So both the triangles are congruent. So what we can write? So since both the triangles are congruent, we can write angle BAC is equal to angle ECA. So angle BAC is I, angle ECA is R. So we can write I is equal to R. So this is how we can derive the law of reflection using Huygens principle. Now let us consider the behavior of plane wavefront in case of different optical devices. So the first one is we will consider a prism. So suppose if you consider a plane wavefront incidented on the prism. So let us say dB is the incident plane wavefront. Now notice one thing, at B it enters into the glass medium, but at D it is still in the air medium. Now by the time light travels from B to C inside glass, you know that here it travels slower. So inside glass, by the time the light travels distance equal to BC, the light at D would have traveled distance equal to dA plus E. So obviously this travels larger distance than this. So because of this, what happens? The wavefront deviates. So this will be your refracted wavefront. The emergent wavefront will be EC. So notice one thing, the wavefront was like this initially, then it became like this. So light was traveling this way, now it is traveling this way. So there is deviation produced. So deviation can be understood in terms of wavefront. See, in ray optics we were concentrating on the concept of a ray, but here we will be concentrating more on the wavefront, not on the ray. So focus is on wavefront. And remember one thing, ray and wavefront are always perpendicular to each other. So this is behavior in the case of a prism. Then if we consider a convex lens, so let us say plane wavefront ACB is incidented on convex lens. Now let us say when it touches the point P1 here, so the wavefront will be somewhat like this, it will be a plane wavefront. Now again notice one thing, at point P it has entered the glass, but at point X and Y it is still in air medium, and light at this point has to travel larger distance inside glass, so it travels slower, but this will travel faster, it travels. So light at this point, if you see, it hardly enters the glass, so obviously this travels larger distance. By the time the light from point P1 comes to point P2, light at A would have reached point D somewhere here. So obviously this covers greater distance than this, then what happens, shape of the wavefront gets changed, so it will give you a spherical refracted wavefront. So shape of the wavefront is changed, you will get spherical wavefront. So this is behavior in case of convex lens. Similarly, if you consider the refraction of plane wavefront in case of a concave mirror. So in case of concave mirror, if I consider ACB is the incident wavefront, when it comes here, it touches the mirror like this. Now let us call this as A dash, this as B dash. Now at A dash and B dash it has already came in contact with the mirror. Now it will travel in the forward direction. That means it reflects back. Now this one has not yet reached the mirror, so it will travel this way and come back. So obviously this will take more time than this to reach the given distance. So what happens, the wave at the center reaches the point E. By that time the wave at other points would have reached the points L and M. Then again you will get a spherical wavefront. So you will get spherical wavefront. In this case also it is converging, and in the previous case, this case also it is converging wavefront. So this is behavior of plane wavefront through convex lens and concave mirror. So that is all about the Huygens principles. Now moving on to the next concept, that is Doppler effect in light. So whenever there is relative motion between source and the observer, there will be apparent change in the frequency of any wave. So this phenomena of apparent change in the frequency is called Doppler effect. So it is common for all the waves. So we had studied Doppler effect in sound last year. So here we have Doppler effect in light. So Doppler effect is a phenomenon of apparent change in the frequency. Remember, it is apparent change, there will be no actual change in the frequency of light. So apparent change in the frequency due to relative motion between source and the observer. This is what we call it as Doppler effect. Now due to this Doppler effect, there will be apparent change in the frequency. Change means it can be positive change or negative change. That means frequency may increase, frequency may decrease. If frequency of the light is increased, then in the case of light, if you consider the visible spectrum, if you go this way, frequency decreases. So if frequency decreases, we say the light is red shifted. That means it is shifting towards lower frequency, that is red. If the frequency increases, if you go this way, frequency increases, then we say it is blue shifted. So that is called red shift and blue shift. These words are very often used in astronomy. So if the source is moving away from the observer, there is decrease in the frequency or increase in wavelength. Decrease in frequency results in increase in wavelength. That is what we call it as red shift. If the source is moving away from the observer, then there is increase in frequency or decrease in wavelength. That is what we call it as blue shift. So if you are observing a galaxy or a star, if the light that is received from the source, if it is shifting towards the longer wavelength, then it is red shifted. That means it is moving away from us. If the wavelengths are shifting towards shorter wavelength, then it is blue shifted. That means it is moving towards us. Then Doppler shift is measured by this formula, delta nu by nu, where nu is frequency. Delta nu by nu is equal to, this should be V. So V radial divided by C with a negative sign. So delta nu by nu is fractional change in the frequency. V radial is component of source velocity in the direction of propagation of light, and C is speed of light. So by measuring Doppler shift for an object, it is possible to measure the speed of the object. Speed of the object is given by C into delta F by F, where F is frequency and delta F is Doppler shift. So that is all about today's class.